एक ये है कि I can imagine myself getting finishing college and getting into getting a job and starting my life, So मेरा जीवन from the time I get a job to the time of my end of life, what should I be doing at various stages, So it is kind of giving you some guidelines as to what you should be doing, or how you should be controlling your life or directing your life,
तो ये चार स्टेजेस ऑफ जो लाइफ है, राइट?
हाँ जी, हाँ, धर्म, अर्थ, काम और मोक्ष, या
राइट,
हाँ,
तो इसी का है क्या, इसी से एक्सट्रैक्ट किया गया है?
हाँ, बेसिकली ये you can actually summarize it as the guidelines for dharma, arth, काम और मोक्ष, ये चारों का essence भी you can actually get it from that, You can look at the 18 mantras and say, some of it apply to dharma, some of it apply to arth, some of it apply to काम, and some of it apply to moksha, So you can actually categorize.
एक और categorization है ना कि 25 years तक you have to be brahmacharya, then
exactly. अच्छा, वो 4 stages of life, brahmacharya ashram, grahastha ashram, exactly,
बालावस्था, युवावस्था, वृद्धावस्था, I think.
नहीं, वो जो 4 आश्रम की बात कर रहे हैं वो एक तो है ब्रह्मचर्य आश्रम, गृहस्थ आश्रम, वानप्रस्थ and sannyas,
Right. Yeah.
So our life is supposed to be जीवेम शरदा शतम कहते हैं, शतम is 100. So the 100 years can be equally divided into 25 years each. The first 25 is brahmacharya ashram, where you're getting the education. The second 25 is grahastha ashram, where you're actually, getting married and having children. Then vaनप्रस्थ, when you're getting old enough, now your children are getting ready to get married. So now you're taking the next step, vaनप्रस्थ ashram, where you start serving the community, in the vaनप्रस्थ ashram, where your life belongs to the community, You divide your role between being a grandparent and offering services to the community. Then the last 25 years is you're in search of the ultimate truth, sannyas, you basically renounce the grahastha ashram as well as vaनप्रस्थ, and you're going in search of the ultimate truth, in search of God, so to speak,
तो वो जो 4 स्टेजेस ऑफ लाइफ है वो भी ऐसी तय हुआ है, सामवेद आया जो
you talk to her. तो क्या कहा आपने?
ये जो 4 स्टेजेस ऑफ लाइफ है जो,
हाँ जी,
ये भी वहीं से आया है, सामवेद से, कि that's a different theory.
नहीं, ये वेदों में आया हुआ है. This is not actually exactly taken out of it, but you can actually connect the mantras to various stages of life, तो जो basic education है जो वेदों का, उनमें they have described this as 4 stages in life, or 4 goals in life, dharma, arth, काम और मोक्ष. और ये जो stages of life है वो भी it's described in one of the Vedas as to at a certain stage in your life, you have to actually become part of a gurukul and get your education, and then when you graduate from there you come home, and that's the time they try to look for a match and get you married and things like that, so.
Right. Okay, very good. Yeah.
जी
ये कनेक्शन हमको नहीं पता था कि जो उपनिषद है ये सब वेदा से एक्सट्रैक्ट किया गया है.
आप अगर कोई भी I mean you pick up the Yajurved यजुर्वेद का लास्ट चैप्टर खोलो, 40th चैप्टर, एंड यू लुक एट द ईशोपनिषद. ये तो इंग्लिश में है, ये जो एकनाथ ईश्वरन की किताब है वो इंग्लिश में है, लेकिन देयर आर उपनिषद्स दैट आर अवेलेबल इन हिंदी. So you can just look, most of those mantras are very identical. Thoda sa slight variation in the order in which they've been presented, you know.
Even ना जो chapters मैंने पढ़े उसमें भी ना मेरे को काफी overlap लगा. Like they talk about self, कि self has created everything in the world, and things like कि you know the human beings are above everything, you know, and it's not that the human beings themselves are above everything, above like sun, moon, the sky, but it's what is driving the human body, you know, that is something, you know, which is supreme, and it's above everything. But uska jo self ka jo concept hai na, I think it's quite repetitive in the book.
And I would say add to it कि self का जो उसमें concept है, it's quite encompassing, like it बहुत ज़्यादा wide उसकी definition है.
Right, the self has created everything, you know, like need basis, you know, like कि शुरू में नहीं था, then everything on need basis was created by self.
There's one of the sayings in the Vedas, yatha pinde tatha brahmande. So whatever is in the universe, a miniature of it is in the self, you know. Self may be the universe can be very complex. Similarly, our inside is equally complex. That's what it implies, you know. और दूसरा ये है कि when you're reading the self, there are two selves that are actually described. One is Jivatma. Even Paramatma is called a self, you know, except some people just call him a self, or he's also addressed as Supreme Self, you know.
Okay. Okay. सुग्रीव जी, आपके जो क्वेश्चन था, थोड़ा सा उस पे एक दो बातें मुझे भी याद आ गई कि मैंने स्ट्रक्चर समझने की कोशिश करी थी कि उपनिषद जैसे वेदों के बाद जो टेक्स्ट हिंदू टेक्स्ट है वो है उपनिषद, और उसको शायद वेदांत लिटरेचर भी कहते हैं. जतिंदर जी इसको शायद करेक्ट कर सके. मेरी अंडरस्टैंडिंग है कि वेदांत लिटरेचर की वेदों का अंत का लिटरेचर उपनिषद, और इसमें कितने टोटल उपनिषद थे एक टाइम पे उसका हमें अच्छे से नहीं अंदाजा है. एक अंडरस्टैंडिंग ये भी कि 108 टोटल हैं, और उसमें जो शंकराचार्य हुए थे, शंकराचार्य जो कि तमिलनाडु में बॉर्न हुए 8th century AD, यानी कि करीब 1200 साल पहले. तो उन्होंने 1200 साल पहले उपनिषदों को वापस उसमें लाए. वो क्या कहते हैं, पॉपुलर, मतलब उन्होंने एक तरह रिवाइवल किया, हिंदू धर्म का ही रिवाइवल किया पूरे भारत में, और उसमें उपनिषद लिटरेचर को उन्होंने, उसमें 10 जो उपनिषद हम लोग अभी शायद पिक कर पढ़ रहे हैं, वो 10 उन्होंने कहा कि ये मेन इंपॉर्टेंट सारे उपनिषदों में सारे ये 8-10 इंपॉर्टेंट है, तो इनको हमें पढ़ना चाहिए.
अच्छा,
ये एक उसकी थोड़ी सी कॉन्टेक्स्ट है.
और एक चीज मैंने ये एक नोटिस करी, एज आई एम रीडिंग ये ऑल दीज इन our books, right, कि there is a lot of parallels which have been drawn between the things which people were seeing, like in those times, like say they had a lot of exposure to the human body, and also like they would, whatever the things that they would see in the nature, like sun, moon, sky, oceans, water, mountains, a concept of universe. तो इन सब चीजों से ना इन्होंने मतलब काफी जो टेक्स्ट है, इन सब चीजों का काफी उल्लेख करता है, मतलब मतलब इन सब चीजों से काफी इंस्पिरेशन ले रखी है एक्चुअली हमारे टेक्स्ट में. तो मतलब that's what I'm seeing.
संदीप जी, आपको मैंने देखा वापस ज्वाइन किया. आप कैन यू लिसन, कैन यू हियर अस? संदीप जी, कैन यू हियर अस नाउ? Okay, maybe he's still trying to find the good connection. So yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes. Very well.
तो अगर शुरू करें या we can
नहीं, शुरू करते हैं जितेंद्र जी, वैसे भी टॉपिक बहुत वाइड है और करते हैं बिल्कुल.
So again, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to look at each Upanishad. ये मैंने जैसा कि मेल में लिखा है कि each Upanishad was something that I became very fond of. मेरे पास CDs हैं where these Upanishads have been are chanted in a very melodious musical voice, you know. And I used to enjoy listening to them while commuting back and forth to work. तो एक बार मेरे गुरुजी हैं डॉक्टर देवबाला रामनाथन, उनसे मैंने बात की थी कि maybe we should do a translation for this, you know. So we did a recording in one of the Queens में एक recording company है, वहाँ पे जाके हमने record किया था. We created a CD out of it, and that CD was circulated through the Arya Pratinidhi Mahasabha. So उसके बाद I got curious. I said, you know, I need to find out more as to what is the meaning of these mantras. So I started picking up little by little, listening to lectures and things like that. And as you read, it opens up your eyes. You know, you get surprised that thousands of years ago, so much wisdom existed, you know. And when you do a comparison of what exists in these Upanishads to the other religions, you say these guys are out of the ballpark, you know. I mean, they are so amazing, so powerful, you know. And you begin to realize, you know, whatever it is being said, you start connecting the dots, you know, in your day-to-day life, you know.
जी.
तो जैसा कि मैंने कहा कि it's the 40th chapter of Yajurved. Yajurved is called the Karm Kand. So if you categorize broadly as to what the Vedas are about, the Rig Veda is considered to be Vishesh Vigyan. Vigyan in this context does not mean, you know, science. It's Vishesh Gyan. This was the first knowledge that was revealed to the rishis when they were in a deep meditation, you know. So Vishesh Gyan is Rig Veda. Yajurveda is called Karm Kand. And the third one is Samved. Samved is basically full of upasana, devotion to God. And the last one is Atharva Ved, is just Gyan, you know. So many people mistake Rig Veda ka context or Atharva Ved ka context, but Acharya ji very strongly emphasizes that Vishesh Gyan was Rig Ved, and just Gyan is Atharva Ved, you know. Okay, so Yajurved has 40 chapters, and it is Karm Kand कहलाता है. और you know, how to, you can actually relate it to our day-to-day life very easily right from the time you know, you're getting, हमने होश संभाला, नौकरी शुरू की. So what is my attitude towards the rest of the world? What is the first mantra actually defines what is the material world. You know, you begin to understand that there are two worlds that we are connected to. One is the material world, the other one is the spiritual world, you know. So the first mantra starts off saying Isha Vasyamidam Sarvam Yad Kincha Jagatyam Jagat Tena Tyaktena Bhunjita Magrida Kasya Svidhanam. So basically this mantra says God pervades each and every atom and molecule of this universe. So the ultimate owner of all the material wealth is God. And the mantra is basically instructing us Tena tyaktena bhunjita, consume the resources of this world, of this universe, with a sense of detachment. Don't get attached to them. Tena tyaktena bhunjita, because this wealth is for all the jivatmas, you know, and we have a right to enjoy the wealth. Tena, लेकिन त्याग की भावना से कंज्यूम करो. तेन त्यक्तेन भुंजिता मा गृदा, गृदा का अर्थ है don't hoard them, you know, संभाल, इकट्ठे मत करो चीजें, you know. Kasya svidhanam, it's ending with a question. It says, after all, who do you think owns this entire property, you know. तो हम जब छोटे होते थे सुनते थे कि कण कण में भगवान, this is essentially that's what is being conveyed to us, you know. So use these resources, but with a sense of attachment. Once you get attached to something, you know, separating becomes problem. यही तो गीता में भी कहा है, you know, don't get too attached to anything, you know. So that's what the first mantra basically says, you know, God pervades each and every atom of this universe. All the jivatmas have a right to these resources. Consume these resources with a sense of detachment. Don't hoard anything. And after all, the ultimate owner of this wealth is God, you know. So I give my children an example that this house that we are in belonged to somebody else before we moved in, and after us, somebody else is going to occupy this, you know. So there's a Acharya Harishchandra ji gives a very nice analogy to this by telling a story about you know, this guy wanted to travel from Kanyakumari all the way to Kashmir. He makes a reservation for a berth in the train. So accidentally somebody else comes down and occupies that berth, you know. So there's now when this guy realizes that he has the actual reservation, there's almost like a fight going on, you know. बाद में TC को बुलाते हैं, तो TC comes down as a mediator, and he looks at it, he says, you know, this really belongs to you, so you occupy it. But ये वही berth है जो once you reach your destination, what you do is you just pick up your bags and walk away from it, you know. So that is the kind of an attitude we should have towards the wealth that we are accumulating, towards the resources that we are using, you know. You want to make the rightful use of it. We have no right to actually damage it or destroy it. But once you get to your destination, you end up walking away from it, you know. That is the first mantra. The second mantra says, Kurvanne veha karmani jiji visheshatagum sama evam tvai nanyate to astina karma lipite nare. ये सेकंड मंत्रा बेसिकली ये दर्शा रहा है कि हमारे कर्म कैसे होने चाहिए. तो ये मंत्र कह रहा है कि हमारे कर्म निष्काम कर्म होने चाहिए. तो कर्म कैन बी categorized as sakam karma or nishkam karma. Sakam karma, you can basically categorize that our normal life is sakam karma, where अगर धर्म से कनेक्टेड आप कर्म कर रहे हो तो उसका परिणाम सुख होगा. अधर्म आप कर रहे हो तो उसका परिणाम दुख होगा. तो ये आपके रजिस्टर में जाते हैं, you know, as merits and demerits, and at the end of your life basically वो जो अगला जन्म मिलता है वो इसके टैली के मुताबिक you will get the next janam. But there is another type of karma which is called nishkam karma, where basically you're doing it where you don't have any self motivation, यानी आपका स्वार्थ कुछ नहीं है उसमें, तो उसको निष्काम कर्म कहते हैं. निष्काम कर्म does not generate any merits or demerits. निष्काम कर्म is being done as an instruction from God. तो you're just following the instruction from God. इसमें आपका कोई स्वार्थ कुछ भी नहीं है basically. तो निष्काम कर्म का वो बैलेंस शीट में कुछ जाता नहीं है, and निष्काम कर्म becomes a path, mukti ka marg hai basically. So you because it's not maintaining any account, there's nothing to judge you for agle janam. Basically you've earned the liberation from the cycle of birth and death by doing निष्काम कर्म. तो ये मंत्र कह रहा है कि निष्काम कर्म करते हुए 100 साल जीने की इच्छा रखो, इसके अतिरिक्त आपके पास और कोई विकल्प नहीं है. कुर्वन्ने वेह कर्माणि जिजीविषे शतकुम समाय एवं त्वयि नान्यते तो अस्ति न कर्म लिप्यते नरे. नॉर्मली जो कर्म हम करते हैं सकाम कर्म, ये हमारे को बंधन में डाल देता है टू एक्चुअली कम बैक टू सेटल व्हाटएवर योर कर्म स्कोर इज. निष्काम कर्म आपको बंधन में नहीं डालता है, तो दैट इज अ वे ऑफ लिबरेशन. सो इट इज एक्चुअली टेलिंग यू देयर, यू नो. The third mantra is Asurya Nama Teloka Andhena Tamasa Avrita Taste Prethyapi Gachanti Eke Chatma Hanojana. The third mantra is basically telling you we have an inner voice within us that is actually sending you signals when we are about to do something wrong or committing a sin. It actually prompts you through bhaya, lajja and shanka, you know, doubt, fear, and shame, you know. ये तीन signals हमको भेजता है our inner voice. So this mantra is saying listen to your inner voice before you commit a sin and give it due consideration, because persistently negating the inner voice, what you're doing is you're damaging your soul. And people who damage their soul, persistently negate the signals from the soul, end up in Asurya Nama Teloka. यानी ऐसे जगह उनका जन्म होगा जहाँ पे सूरज भी उनको नसीब नहीं होगा. They will be reborn in total darkness. अंधेरे में उनका जन्म rebirth होगा करके. That is the third mantra, you know. The fourth mantra, fourth से लेके 8 तक it starts talking about the attributes of God. The fourth mantra says Anejadekam Manaso Javayo. ये कहता है कि God does not move, but because God is omnipresent, He is faster than our mind. You know, we know in physics the fastest thing that we know of is the speed of light, but our mind is faster than the speed of light. But God, due to God's omnipresence, is faster than your mind. You know, so basically that's what this mantra is saying. Because of God's omnipresence, even before my mind reaches a destination, God is already present there, you know. So that is the fourth mantra. The fifth mantra basically talks about, you know, our relationship with God. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmaiva bhuti janata. So the next mantra says, जैसा भगवत गीता में आपने पढ़ा होगा कि Shri Krishna says that I am in you and you are in me, you know. So now you can extend that logic a little bit, you know. If everybody is in God and God is in me, that means everybody is in me, you know, right? So that logic basically says, you know, you get a different perspective about every living being, you know. ये भी मेरे में है, you know. I look at that dog is in me, you know. I look at that cat is in me, that snake is in me, you know. And similarly in that animal, because God is in that animal soul, you know, I'm in that animal also, you know. So you develop a different perspective towards other beings, you know. Dr. Devbala used to use a logic and basically say that when you look at the animal, this animal is probably paying its dues because of some karma it has done in its past life. So it has to serve time as a dog or serve time as a cat or whatever, you know. और दूसरा महाभारत में श्री कृष्ण जी कहते हैं कि मैं ही वो सूक्ष्म धागा हूं जिसमें ये सभी आत्माएं मणियों की तरह पिरोई हुई हैं. So he is the common thread that is actually connected to all the jivatmas, So you develop a separate, different kind of relationship to other living beings, other souls, these could be humans or animals, So then there's mantra 8 talks about the attributes of God, Saparega, Chukram, Akayam, Avarnam. Here they use a lot of adjectives to actually explain the qualities of God. Saparega basically means God is pure radiance, Chukram, Akayam, jiski kaya nahi hai, he doesn't have a physical body. If he doesn't have a physical body, he is not subject to bodily vulnerabilities, तो जो भी हमारे हाथ दुख रहा, पैर दुख रहा, God is not subjected to all of those limitations. Parega, Chukram, Akayam, Avarnam, Asnaviram, he doesn't have the neural networks of veins and arteries, he's Akayam, Avarnam, Asnaviram, Shuddham, Papa Vidham. So Pap उसको ईश्वर को छू नहीं सकता, तो पाप और पुण्य के चक्कर में जीवात्मा पढ़ते हैं, लेकिन ईश्वर इज बियॉन्ड पाप एंड पुण्य. पाप विद्धम कबीर मनीषी, ही इज अ वन मैन शो बेसिकली, और वन पर्सन शो, और वन एंटिटी शो. ही डजंट हैव a network of staff to actually help him. Kavir Manishi Paribhu Swayambhu, he is complete in all respects, Paribhu Swayambhu, Shashwati Bhya Samabhya. So he's been there before the creation, and he's running the present creation. He'll be there after the dissolution of this universe, So this is mantra number 8. And essentially, Eknath pretty much, although English may convert karna, a lot of these Sanskrit words are difficult, but he did a very good job in actually conveying the essence of the mantras. Mantras 9 to 11 basically talk about, ye jo gyan hai, जिसको हम विद्या कहते हैं. विद्या can be broadly categorized into 2 categories. One is called Vidya and Avidya. In this particular context, Vidya is spiritual knowledge, and Avidya is everything other than spiritual knowledge. Many people mistake Avidya to be, wrong knowledge or lack of knowledge. Lekin in this particular context, Avidya means everything other than Vidya. If I draw a circle, and within that circle, I put a smaller circle and say that this is all spiritual knowledge, the remaining portion of the bigger circle is Avidya. Avidya in this context is knowledge of the material world. जो हमारे जो स्कूल कॉलेज में हम लोग सीखते हैं, that is all Avidya basically. So this talks about Vidyam cha Avidyam cha yastad vedo bhayam saha avidya mrityum tirtva vidyaya amritam ashnate. So many people get confused, should I focus on Vidya or should I focus on Avidya? There are people who just focus on the material world. They don't want anything to do with the spiritual world. So this mantra is basically saying that, if you just focus on the material world, I think you're making a very big, grave mistake, Then there are people who renounce the material world and they just want to focus on the spiritual world and just disregard the material world completely. तो ये मंत्र कहता है, they are bigger fools, who just totally dedicate themselves to spiritual knowledge and ignore the knowledge of the material world. So basically the mantra is saying you need a balance of both. You need a knowledge of the material world so that you can physically, mentally, and spiritually develop yourself and prolong your lifespan with the knowledge of the material world, where you do yoga, you eat a lot of nutritious food. All that knowledge is there in the knowledge of the material world, and the prolonged life used towards studying about spirituality. So now you get a balance of both material world as well as spiritual world. That is what the object of your life should be. So there's a parallel 3 mantras. It's called Sambhuti and Asambhuti. So there are people who want to focus on me, my family, and I don't care what happens to the rest of the community. I'm not concerned. So it's a parallel. It basically says you need a balance of both. You need to develop yourself and your family, and then whatever prolonged life you get from the study of the material world, and by taking care of your family, now you allocate some time towards the community service. So basically it says you need a balance of taking care of yourself and taking care of the community. Now when you looking at these mantras at various stages of life, as you're going from being a 25-year-old taking up a new job, you begin to see the importance of these things at various stages of your life. As you're getting older, बच्चे पढ़ा लिए तो अभी आपको you are at the crossroads. Somebody wants to talk to me about Bhagavad Gita. Should I devote some time towards it or just continue to actually? Now I have an opportunity to serve the community. Should I take some time off from my family time to devote some time to the community? So these come at various stages in our life. So aage abhi, now the mantra is coming more towards the end of life. एक हमारे गुरु जी हैं Dr. Satish Prakash ji. He talks about these mantras in a little bit different terminology. The mantra 15 says hiranmayena patrena satya sami tamukham tatvam pushanna pavruto satya dharmaya drishtaye. So the mantra 15 is basically saying the truth is being hidden by a golden lid. Now at a particular stage in life, you want to know what spirituality is, but getting away from the material world becomes very difficult. You see the glamour of the material world around you, and you're reluctant to actually get away from the material world into something that's totally abstract. Spirituality ke baare mein hum log kuch jante nahi. It's a very vague, very abstract thing. So the mantra says हिरण्मयेन पात्रेण सत्य सामी तमुखम. जो सत्य का मुख है वो एक सुनहरे ढक्कन से ढका हुआ है, और ये ढक्कन सिर्फ सुनहरा है ही नहीं है, लेकिन काफी heavy भी है. You're trying to push that lid open so that you can look beyond. He says you find it very difficult. In a situation like this, he says, pray to God so that you can push open that lid so that you could look beyond the material world into the spiritual world. So the mantra basically, or the devotee ends up finally pushing that, manages to push open that lid so that he could live beyond the material world into the spiritual world. So these are mantras more of like end of life. In the next mantra, the devotee finds himself face to face with God. The mantra says Pushan Ekarshe Yam Praja. So yahan par the devotee has actually reached his face to face with God, And he said, God, I'm standing in front of you, but I cannot see anything, So then he realizes that God has given so many things to a lot of the terrestrial objects like the sun, the moon. He says, God, may I request you to gather up all the radiance and the brilliance that you have given to the sun, moon, and the stars and pull it closer to you so that I can see what you really look like, So in the mantra, it says, it implies that God actually agrees with him, and he looks at God and he says, that you and I are so similar in respect. You have been nurturing and taking care of this universe at the macro level, and at the micro level, I've been taking care of this physical body of mine. So you and I are very similar, वो मंत्र वो जो मैंने कहा था यथा पिंडे तथा ब्रह्मांडे. So basically you're taking care of the universe, I'm taking care of this physical body of mine, so we are similar, that's what he tells God in this particular mantra, saying that so you're doing at the macro level, I'm doing at the micro level, So this is like the end of the world. It तो अगले मंत्र में आता है कि क्या था वो अगला मंत्र, एक मिनट.
I think तो वो ऐत्र उपनिषद में भी इसी टाइप के कॉन्सेप्ट्स रेवर्बरेट हो रहे हैं, क्योंकि वहां पे भी यही बोलते हैं कि जो ह्यूमन बॉडी है, दैट इज whatever is driving the human body is above everything else which exists in the world. तो उसमें भी ऐसा ही कुछ कॉन्सेप्ट है.
So the next mantra, I'll just quickly finish that off.
मैं नितिन जी की पॉइंट पे कहूंगा कि कई बार मुझे समझ नहीं आता कि जो मुझे, जैसे उन्होंने कहा कि सिमिलर सा उन्हें मंत्र लगा, तो व्हेन आई फाइंड दिस ओवरलैप, I am unable to distinguish if this is really an overlap or is this because of my short-sightedness that I cannot distinguish, like I cannot find the nuances in the depth of the meaning. So
yeah, of course, yeah, I mean, yeah, we are not at that level, in that preaching.
Yeah, you will find that a lot where a particular thought is being said a little bit differently in another Upanishad, But when you look at the essence, when I was studying Kena Upanishad, a lot of the mantras of the Kena Upanishad, you can say that this was covered in a different way. Essentially, the essence of this was already covered in Isha Upanishad, So, kei points ऐसे हैं जो कि that have been covered. So the next mantra that I was going to cover says Vayur Nilam Amritam Thedam Basmantam Shariram Om Krito Smara Klibe Smara. Where I was leading up to is this guy standing in this Jivatma standing in front of God. So एक प्रकार से उसका देहांत हो गया है. तो बेसिकली मंत्र कह रहा है कि वायुर अनिलम. वायुर का मतलब है कि the soul is forever. अमृतम थेदम भस्मांतम शरीरम. हमारा शरीर जो मैटर का बना हुआ है ये भस्म होने वाला है. तो हमेशा हमको ये ध्यान रखना चाहिए कि हमारी जो आत्मा है वो अमर है और हमेशा कृतो स्मरा. ह्यूमन्स बीइंग एड्रेस्ड एज कृतो. हम लोग कर्म करते हैं तो हमारे को कृतो करके एड्रेस किया हुआ. कृतो स्मरा. ऑलवेज थिंक ऑफ गॉड. उठते सोते उठते जागते बैठते, I mean every time keep God in the back of your mind. That's what this mantra is saying. And the last mantra is the mantra that we do in the Havan, Om Agnenaya Supatharaya Asman. It's like the Jivatma ka dehant ho gaya hai, and the family and friends that are left behind, they are actually sitting and having a prayer, addressing God as Agnenaya Supatharaya. So addressing God as Agni. Agni का अर्थ ये है जो आगे लेके जाती है, अग्रसर करती है. अग्नि से प्रार्थना कर रहे हैं कि मुझे वो सुपथ, वो अच्छे पथ पे लेके चलो, और मेरे में जो कमियां हैं, यो दस्म जुहुरान में, ये इसमें all the evil propensities that I have or the negative that I have, help me dispel them. और इसके लिए मैं बार बार आपको नमन करता हूँ और बार बार आपको प्रणाम करता हूँ करके. That's the way they end that mantra. Mantra number 18 is the last mantra of this Ishopanishad. I think I covered the entire Upanishad. I'm sorry it took quite a bit of time. I hope.
नहीं जितेंद्र जी, बिल्कुल भी नहीं. मुझे तो इतना अच्छा लग रहा था कि मैं आपको I cannot explain because I was going back to the book while you were explaining. I was trying to find those things, but आपने जिस तरह से explain किया उससे book से तो बहुत better, with including with Sanskrit मंत्र, और तो it's just fantastic. It's just fantastic. और जी
हाँ, उसने बहुत अच्छा, he just wrote in very small print मंत्रा नंबर लिखा हुआ है उस पे, you know, ईशोपनिषद में.
हाँ, नहीं उसके अंदर भी मतलब मैं देख रहा था, आप जैसे पॉइंट एक्सप्लेन कर रहे थे कि what he has said and comparing कि उन्होंने किस तरह से लिखा है, but I think आपके जो आप बता रहे थे just much easier to understand and much more relatable. तो आपने जैसे केन उपनिषद भी आप कह रहे हो पढ़ा हुआ है?
हाँ जी.
So maybe today, आज तो थोड़ा सा टाइम कम है, नेक्स्ट टाइम और जब भी हम उसको फिर स्केड्यूल करके we can discuss केन उपनिषद.
Yeah, definitely.
Fine. क्यों सुग्रीव जी, आपको क्या लगता है?
हाँ जी,
मैं सुग्रीव जी से पूछ रहा हूँ.
हाँ, नहीं बहुत अच्छा तरीके से आपने जितेंद्र जी आपने डिस्क्राइब किया इसको, यू नो. तो आप इसको बुक ये पहले भी आपको मालूम था इसके बारे में, राइट, उपनिषद के बारे में?
हाँ जी. ये तो वो मैं अभिषेक जी से कह रहा था कि वो जो हमने वैदिक स्टडी सर्कल शुरू किया, इसी से शुरू किया, और मैंने जो मंत्रों का उच्चारण सीखा है, एक सीडी है मेरे पास. I can definitely share it with you very beautifully. वो it's so melodious, you know. My son-in-law doesn't know a word of Hindi, but वो जब मेरे साथ is American, तो वो जब सुनता है तो उसको भी बहुत आनंद आता है उसमें, you know.
जी.
Yeah, but you know, मंत्र से ज्यादा इंटरेस्ट हमको उसमें